Hi, this is Nick Taylor for Grey Area. Today we're joined by one of the leading tech house producers and DJs for the past 15 years and the co-founder of Moon Harbour Records. It's Matthias Tanzmann. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Nick. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Okay, so we like to talk a lot about your history and your entire career in these spotlight features. So can you start maybe by telling me about your earliest experiences with music? Did you grow up in a musical household? What was the music that first made an impact in your life?
Actually, I didn't grow up in a very musical household. I didn't learn an instrument when I was a kid, nothing like this. But my first eye-opening or ear-opening moment was when I was a young teenager, and a friend in my neighborhood started, working a little bit of trying stuff for turntables and a synthesizer. And then when I went to the first techno club when I was 15 or 16, and I was like, okay, wow, this is a world that I'm really interested in. And this is how I got into electronic music, even before having a very special attachment to any sort of music before. I mean, I always listened to music on the radio, but I haven't been intensively involved with hip hop or anything like that. It was just this moment when I started.
And this was in Leipzig, I suppose, in the early 90s or the mid 90s. It was formerly part of the USSR and only just emerging from that. Can you tell us a bit about the scene there? Was it easy to find techno clubs and electronic music, or was that still very small and underground?
It was a super underground thing in the early and mid 90s. Like you said, it was before it was part of the Russian side of Germany when it was divided. And when the wall came down, there were so many abandoned places. This was such a period of restructuring, and old factories were just they went out of business, and all those places were empty, and nobody really knew what's going on. Even police, everything had to be restructured and taken into the new system. So you could basically do a lot of things that nobody cared about. So the kids of this time, I mean, you might have heard about it in Berlin when they took the first illegal parties and took those first clubs. Same thing was in Leipzig, of course, on a smaller scale. People would go to Berlin and see what's going on, and then try to build something their own in Leipzig. And this is what happens. We had so many illegal parties. You would just move in a very basic sound system into an abandoned place and put some kind of bar there, and then up we go. And nobody would care. There was no police. There was there was nobody there. And this was really a time with so much opportunity, but also everything was so new. And I was, teenage. Everything was so exciting. This really got me into electronic music and this whole world.
What about your first DJ gig? Do you remember that? And how did that come about? And what were you playing? Were you playing anything that you remember now?
My first DJ gig was in a bar that I went to as a kind of a customer. I became friends with the owner. It was a cool bar for that time. More like a cocktail bar, a night bar thing, and then they would have a DJ booth, and DJ would play Friday, Saturday, and I played house music basically. I played. I think I just started getting into that kind of house disco Chicago thing.
And in 1997, you got a residency at the Distillery. I imagine that was a big step forward. What was the crowd like back then? Were they interested in hearing the sorts of music that you wanted to play? And do you remember any memorable times from that period?
It was actually a very big step for me, of course, because Distillery has already by then been a legendary club. And I had my first gig there in 1996 in the basement, which was another floor, dance floor, and it was more techno. And I think I played more techno. I don't even remember that so properly, because I also had records like that. And then in 97, I had my first appearance upstairs, in an upstairs house floor, which where I felt, more fitting to. And yeah, I played this kind of sound, but everything was way less defined and put into niche. So you could play, from here to there, from deep house to almost to techno and back and forth. And also the crowd was absolutely way more open-minded, because techno and house were not this established thing as they are now. So people would just go with the flow, and everything was still interesting and new. The crowd was super mixed. It was a little bit like you see it now in some super cool clubs, that you have this still interesting, mix of queer people, and then you have somebody in a suit and a punk and whatever. It was this really diverse crowd, and that kind of got lost on the way when everything established, which is a natural process, obviously. But so for me, this was a very, very interesting time and super fresh, and to see all those people, it was really, really exciting, interesting.
Around the same time you started producing music, I think at first under the alias Gammat 3000. Can you tell us about how that came about? Was that like a little bedroom studio you had, or did you have some friends with some equipment? What were you using? Was it all soft synths, or did you have some hardware?
It was hardware, because the software synths were just in the beginning, and it was the same friend that initially got me into electronic music from my neighborhood that I started producing music with. But it was okay. From my first money that I earned, somehow I, bought a sampler, Akai S2000, really like the most basic sampler you can think of. And then we had one Yamaha synth and a little mixer, and I think 2 cheap effect outboard things. And then we started producing, sampling stuff, and building basic deep house tracks back then. It was exciting in the end. If you're looking back now, that you have all those opportunities with the big studio. Once you were limited to a few things and to a few sounds, also because the RAM memory was so little that you couldn't load big samples, or it was also kind of a good thing that you had to focus on the small things that you could do with the outboard. So it was a good time.
Yeah, I think lots of people feel that. Sometimes it can be faster, at least, to make a track back in a bedroom when they were 19 years old or 16 years old, when they had 2 synths and neither of them were multi-timbral. Whereas if you have absolutely everything, and with soft synths as well, you can spend I was talking to somebody yesterday, you spend an hour going through kick drums looking for the perfect kick drum, and
it's too many options. Yeah, exactly. Too many options. Back then, you had your 3 bass drums that you sampled, because we didn't have a drum computer at this time. We had what do we do? Korg MS-20. That was the one synth that we had that sounded like the main synth of Air when they did Moon Safari. So we sounded a little bit like that, because also we loved that sound, and but hey, that's it. Those were the times.
Yeah, well, a Korg MS-20 is a hell of a synth still to this day. And now a lot more expensive. So you got your hands on a good one then.
It was 300 Deutschmarks back then, which would be 150 euros.
Very good. It's about a 10.
That's a good price.
And that leads up to Moon Harbour. So Moon Harbour was founded, I think, in 2000. Was that really just for you and your friends to put out music, or did you have ambitions that it would become a label that would attract a lot of international attention and artists?
It was thought for our group of friends to be also to be able to release stuff independently from applying at other labels and sending demos and, you know, make a step forward, but we never expected it to, first of all, you know, turn 20 last year, 20 years, to exist for that long, and also to get so much international recognition. I mean, never the idea that we had. We were happy it happened, but there was no business plan behind it or something like that. It was more like, hey, let's do something. And Andre, my partner in the label, he was one of the owners and founders of Distillery, of the club that we were talking about earlier, and he also wanted to do something else, to, you know, have another field which is part of this musical scene, but to get a little bit out of the club thing. So yeah, it was a logical step for him and for me too.
Okay, well, let's go forward a little bit to the time you got the residency in Ibiza at Coco Loco. I think it was 2007. Obviously, by that point, you elevated to a much larger international stage. How did that come about? You must have been playing in Ibiza a little bit before that. How did that transition come about?
That was kind of unexpected as well. I played in Ibiza, but only a few times. I played Space, some, I don't know what other things, but not many gigs. And then in 2006, I released 2 tracks, or a track and a remix that have been played a lot by Tanya Vulcano at DC10 at the Circle Loco party. And so they invited me to come play on the 1st of January on New Year's Day as a kind of a tryout, I guess. And so I was like, wow, because my friends Steve Bach, Guido Schneider, they were playing there, and they said, like, it's the most amazing party. And the thing is, I've never been to Circo Loco, to DC10 before. And I get this request. I'm like, okay, wow. I was super excited. And I had a New Year's Eve gig in London. I was flying with my agent. We were flying into Ibiza, but we had to connect somewhere, and my luggage got lost. Luckily, I had a few records on me, but so I had to wait at the airport to make that statement and stuff. And then, because we were so late because of that, they took me directly to the club, opened the back door, put me into the DJ booth, said, you have to start playing now. So I didn't even have time to get nervous because I was still working on that luggage problem. And then I went into that famous terrace room and started playing. I was like, wow, this is the most amazing thing. And luckily, they seem to have liked it. So they asked me to come back. And then from the next season, from 2007 on, I played there regularly.
Okay, so you arrived, you were just put into the DJ box, you just had some records on you. Did you have enough records to cover the whole set? Were you playing like every B-side and every track off every piece of vinyl you had?
I think I was clever enough just to check in my clothes and stuff, and keep my whole music bag with me in hand luggage. So I had enough music. It was not a problem. I think the problem was just that the other bag was gone. Okay. But I couldn't just leave the airport. I had to make that, you know, you have to claim that, or make that file.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's been 15 years since then, around about that. Can you tell us a little bit about how your music taste has changed and moved on since then? And what have been the big influences that you think have either changed your approach to DJing or your approach to music and the sort of music that you play?
I think my music changed a lot. Even before I was before the Circo Loco times, I was way more into deep house. The deep house sound of this time was different from what is defined deep house now. Then it got more into minimal. This was the whole time around 2004 or 5. Also when I started with Circo Loco, it's a little bit the sound still. And then I think also through the Circo Loco times, I got more into that tribal stuff. I mean, I've always loved percussion, but Circo Loco sound to me was always this kind of organic, tribal, housey thing that also influenced me. And then I got a little bit more there, and then it's a little bit that what's called tech house now, even though this is also a very widely used thing, which is quite commercial these days as well. Anyway, so but it changed a little bit, and also the more I played and the more places I played, and also bigger places I played, it kind of added some diversity to my sound, and made me think of being able to play in front of 5 or 10,000 people. Then you have to play different music when compared to when you play to 300 people in a small club. So I kind of developed different angles to that, and I'm pretty sure the Circo Loco, the DC10 club, also influenced me a lot.
There's something that we ask everyone, because we like to sort of gather this from all different people that we speak to. But can you name a track that was particularly influential in your journey in dance music?
That would be difficult. I can say in my early days I was very much into Matthew Herbert, into this Around the House album. Also, of course, Daft Punk, Homework. This is something later, this is really difficult to break it down to one particular track.
Yeah,
no, I can't really say that.
Okay, yeah. Now let's move on to kind of where we are now. Do you think house music is in an interesting place right now? What sort of new music do you listen to? Where do you find your new music? What do you feel about house right now?
House, I think house has always been interesting, and it's always so self-referential, because it's kind of, then you have, it sounds like 80s again, then it sounds like 90s 909 rave sound, and now with the very melodic stuff, and it's really difficult to say. I don't even know where house is right now, because there's like almost different scenes in house music. It's not like there's one, for me, there's not like one main tendency where house music is headed to, which is okay, which is good. It just underlines how big house is or has become. I mean, this is like something a lot of people can agree on, and it also is kind of mainstream now. You can listen to house, or sorts of what they call deep house now, in mainstream radio. So it's really difficult to say house is going this or that direction, but it doesn't have to. For me, it's fine. I find my niche in house, what I like always, and I'm always find new interesting tracks, which is good. But I'm not only listening to electronic music when I listen to music at home. Especially now in the last 2 years, when there was no clubbing because of Corona, at some point you don't want to listen to club music all the time, and when you don't have the moments when you listen to it in a club. For me, it was also a problem in the studio when the first lockdown came. I went to the studio and made music, which was kind of good. So finally had some time. But after a few weeks, without being able to listen or play that music in a club party, a social environment, kind of loses inspiration to make club music. I realized that.
What's your approach to making tracks now? Do you have a studio at home? Do you have a professional studio that you keep near your home, or how does it work?
I have a studio, not at home. Like, I don't know, it's 30 minutes away in another place, but I'm about to move it into my house now, because I want to be able to, when you feel like inspired at 10 p.m., just to be able to walk up to the studio and maybe work a little bit on it, which I kind of miss. But it used to be fine to have the studio a little bit outside, so you could separate private time and work time. But I just want to change that, and I think it would feel better now to be more flexible about that and quicker to change.
During Corona, if you were not getting that feedback from playing your music out at clubs, did you find it changed the sorts of music that you were making? Were you making more down-tempo stuff or more listening music?
Not down-tempo, but I realized I was making softer music. you know, more like melodic stuff, more things that you would probably listen to at Spotify rather than playing in a club. Less functional, let's say that. And then I also realized when I started playing again and listened to some of those things that I worked on, I was like, that's not even me. Why did I do that? And I realized, okay, I want to make some, you know, club tracks again.
Sometimes you need those periods where you make something else which isn't you, and it's never going to see the light of day, but then it helps you get somewhere else, and then you evolve.
Absolutely. I'm totally up. I mean, I totally agree on that. I'm not you know, I'm not unhappy about making this kind of music. It's, like you said, it made me more aware of what I wanted to do after.
Looking ahead at 2022, could you tell us where you think are the most exciting clubs to play at the moment, or where are the most exciting cities to play if you could play anywhere in 2022?
I mean, if I could play anywhere without any restrictions, I think it would still be my favorite places that existed before. It's Ibiza for sure, because this is, I would say, will probably always be the place where you have the best crowds, because people go there for that reason. They're on holidays, most of them, and they're super excited to go to the clubs. And this, you can feel that on the dance floor. It's fantastic. And then South America, I miss South America, like the last 2 years. Argentina, Peru, Chile, all those amazing places where you have such a responsive and educated crowd. It's so much fun to play. I'm really looking forward to go back there. Recently, I was able to play again in the US, which is good because I also enjoy playing there a lot. And then, hopefully all the rest of the world will open up again as well, and then I'll be able to come. I had a lot of nice parties in Switzerland. Actually, it was one of the countries that allowed clubs to stay open most of the time. That was also nice.
Great. Just a final thing, touching on the pandemic that you just mentioned. We saw the rise of a lot of DJs streaming over Twitch and using technology to play in different sorts of ways. Is that interesting to you? Do you see yourself using new technology in any ways to expand what you do, either mixing or producing?
I did a few live streams, like as everybody or almost everybody did. I didn't feel so good about it. Didn't really interest me as much as it should be to keep on doing it. I have friends that like you say, running a Twitch channel, the Superflu guys. They've been doing amazing, streaming like their home office show I think almost every day for months. And I was also once guest there, and they really reached a big crowd through that. But it's also a lot of work, so hats off. They really worked hard but created a new audience for themselves. Really well done. But I decided for myself, I don't want to do that much. Rather go to studio, focus on producing music a little more.
Okay, great. Well, let's do the quick fire round now. I've got a couple of things, and you just have to select one. So, vinyl or CDJs?
Nah. Okay, right now I play on CDJs, but I have thousands of vinyl records, obviously, at home, because I come from a different time.
Serato or Tractor?
Tractor.
Beer or wine?
Wine.
If you could only save one piece of gear from your studio, which would it be?
Oh, that's difficult. Although I almost never use it, my Fender Rhodes Mark II electric piano.
Ibiza or Miami?
Ibiza.
Berlin or Leipzig?
I have to say Leipzig now because I live here. But I love Berlin.
Swimming pool or beach?
Beach.
TB303 or Mini Moog?
That's also a question you should never ask everybody. Minimoog.
Okay, Chicago or Detroit?
Let's say Chicago because of more house.
Sax solo or guitar solo?
In house music, maybe none of them, but guitar.
And finally, Bandcamp or Spotify?
I personally use Spotify more, but for the label, we also have a Bandcamp shop. So let's say Spotify because I use it more.
Okay, great. You've got a release coming up. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about the next couple of months? Any gigs you'd like to shout out? Any releases you've got coming up that you'd like to let our viewers know about?
Yeah, I have a release with Steve Buck coming on Knee Deep in Sound. This is Hot Since 82's label. It's coming out next week, 28th of January. And then I'm just working on a remix for Ronnie Sekali and P. Diddy, which is coming out in May, as far as I know, on Stride. This is Ronnie Sekali's label. We're working on some new stuff with Black Circle for my label, Moon Harbour, and also some solo stuff. So this is what's coming up next. And then gigs-wise, I just came back from a small tour, Mexico, Costa Rica, USA. Having a few days off now, and hopefully the pandemic will slow down soon, so we'll see each other or everybody on some festivals and clubs in the near future. This is what I really hope for.
Great. Well, look, thanks so much for joining us here today. Is there any social media handles or anything else that you'd just like to shout out so people know where to find you?
Well, yeah, it's Matthias Tanzmann, basically on probably all the big social media platforms. So if you want to follow me there, would be lovely, and we can keep updated on things.
Great. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us today. This has been Matthias Tanzmann speaking to me, Nick Taylor, for Grey Area. Thanks a lot. Have a really good day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.